and welcome to the Reparenting Daily podcast. In this podcast, we'll dive deep into reparenting, exploring all of the tools and resources that you'll need to help you along your journey. This podcast is divided into 3 sections. First is a daily reading. Second is a discussion on the reading followed by journal prompts. And the last section is a peaceful meditation for closing. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from whenever and wherever you're joining us. Thanks for being here for another day of reparenting. I much appreciate your presence and your continued support. If you could go ahead and give us a like, share, subscribe, and follow wherever you're listening, that would be greatly appreciated so that we can help others find the podcast and also to join our community. If you can also give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcast and Spotify Podcast, that would be greatly appreciated. Those are the 2 biggest platforms for this podcast. So yeah, all of your help and support there would be greatly appreciated. Just as a reminder, also, we have now a Reparenting Daily community that you can join via the Patreon. It is either $10 or $20 per month, depending on if you're a student or a normal adult. If you need assistance, a reduction or something, you can also contact me and ask for that if you're having financial difficulties. But the goal here is to create a place where we will have twice weekly Zoom meetings to discuss reparenting. One meeting will be a book club. We will read through some text and just to create a community and open space where we can come to connect and to support each other on our reparenting journey, to bring the missing knowledge, to bring the missing emotional experiences, and everything else that we need to help us in this open, safe, and non-judgmental community that's dedicated for your reparenting. In addition to that, if you join the Patreon, you'll also gain early access to the Lessons for Reparenting Daily podcast. So those will be released bi-weekly, but if you join the Patreon, you'll be gaining access to those earlier. So go ahead and check that out as well. And that's it. So let's go ahead and get over to the reading, guys. Today's reading is from the ACA Daily Meditation, and it's entitled Parental Blame. Parental blame. It's not the purpose of the 12-step ACA program to place blame on parents or caregivers. However, the adult child must not shield the parents during the inventory process. Big Red Book, page 109. Condemning or raging at ourselves for not doing something right is a carryover from our dysfunctional childhood. This behavior was programmed into us. In ACA, we learn to challenge that by reprogramming ourselves to be kind to both our inner child and our adult self. When we're tempted to get stuck in blaming our parents for everything that's wrong in our lives, we are reminded that ACA is not about blame. We revisit the past to learn why we think and act as we do and find out how to change our thought patterns. We accept responsibility for our own actions as adults. While we strive to forgive our parents so we can let go of our resentments, this doesn't mean we forgive their deeds. We forgive that the person separate from the action. Dysfunction and family disease is passed down through generations. Even though we forgive, it may still be necessary to separate from people who continue to be unsafe. We recognize our self-harming behaviors originated and know that we don't have to hang on to them. We accept that we are human beings, and as such, we know that we will inevitably make mistakes. But we are not now, nor have we ever been a mistake. On this day, I honor myself as my best friend. I will stop the cycle of self-inflicted emotional abuse learned through generations of dysfunction. Thank you, and that's the reading from today. Hi guys, welcome back. Today's reading reminds us that reparenting process is less about finding fault and more about taking a compassionate, clear look at our histories and patterns. Often we carry guilt or shame from our past, feeling as though we need to either blame ourselves or our parents. But in ACA, we're encouraged to shift that perspective, recognizing that we can take responsibility for our growth without condemning anyone, including ourselves. Forgiveness, as discussed here, is not about excusing harmful behavior, but rather about freeing ourselves from the emotional weight of resentment. It's about distinguishing our parents or caregivers as people from the actions they may have taken. For many of us, this can mean setting boundaries or choosing a safe distance from those who remain unsafe, even if we forgive them in our hearts. And occasionally, this will mean that we have to cut them off completely and to rebuild our own lives and our own families from scratch. And that's something that we have to learn to accept. Lastly, this section encourages us to stop the cycles of self-inflicted emotional abuse. We can break the chain of dysfunction by becoming our own best friend, gentle and forgiving, yet also accountable and firm. This journey is about honoring ourselves, acknowledging our inherent worth, and building the self-kindness we might have missed out on in our early years. As we reflect on the reading today, here are some journal prompts that will help get you started. Reflect on how self-blame or guilt may have been programmed into you as a child. What are some of the critical or harsh judgments that you make of yourself that still come up today? Second is, consider a time you blamed your parents or caregivers for something in your life. What would it feel like to shift from blame to understanding? And how might this change affect you? Next, what actions or boundaries might be necessary to protect yourself from anyone who continues to be unsafe, even if you've chosen to forgive them? Next, think about a recent mistake you made. How would your inner best friend respond to this situation? Write a few affirmations of forgiveness and encouragement that your best friend would offer. And lastly, what are some self-harming behaviors or patterns that you recognize come from your family dysfunction? As always, thanks for being here. Take care and be well. And now, let us move on to the final section, the meditation. This is an unguided meditation. I will simply provide some music and you can take some time to relax. Please feel free to choose a location and a place where you feel safe and where you can be undisturbed for the next 10 minutes. You can choose to be sitting down, standing, as you like, wherever you are most comfortable. Thank you for being here and enjoy the meditation.